10 minutes of brutal footage. On May the 25th, Minneapolis police officers arrested George Floyd, an African-American man who had been reported by a local shop employee of using a $20 counterfeit bill. He was later discovered to be unarmed. Footage shows a white police officer kneeling on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Floyd begs please repeatedly. He groans that he can't breathe. He calls out for his mother. Then he falls silent. This video has inspired a global movement against police brutality and racial injustice. It is forcing societal change, and it was shot from the pavement by a 17-year-old teenager on her smartphone. I'm Jo Webster, and I'm the Deputy Global Editor for Visuals at Reuters. I've witnessed firsthand how citizen journalism has disrupted the media over the last 20 years, how the ubiquity of smartphones has democratized storytelling, and how local stories can have a global impact and change society. The George Floyd killing is the ultimate example of this. For the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to discuss how the growth of smartphones and the rise of user-generated content continues to change the industry, how we've responded at Reuters. We don't see UGC as a threat. In fact, it actually complements our news gathering operation. And by applying our vigorous verification techniques, we can protect our principles and brand and ensure authenticity for our clients and viewers. On top of that, we've also adopted mobile journalism in all of our 200 newsrooms around the world. By upskilling our journalists in texts, photos, TV, digital, and graphics, we've dramatically expanded our storytelling capabilities and our geographical scope and access to stories and breaking news. This has had a knock-on effect of cutting through silos, changing not only technology and workflow, but also mindset. The whole newsroom has realised the power of mobile journalism, helping us to improve the journalism we deliver. I've spoken to some of the great practitioners of visual journalism from the Reuters newsroom and will share their thoughts too. It's estimated more than 5 billion people have mobile devices, and over half of these connections are smartphones, according to the Pew Research Centre. As a result, the consumption of news keeps rising, but over an ever diffuse environment. The annual Reuters Institute digital report, which was released last week, found dependence on smartphones continues to rise. Over 2/3 of people now use their mobile for news weekly, and these devices are encouraging the growth of shorter video content via third-party platforms, as well as audio content like podcasts. Just over a quarter of the people surveyed said they prefer to start their news journeys with a website or an app, and Generation Z consumers are more than twice as likely to access news via social media. Even though the coronavirus pandemic has seen more people turn to live TV broadcasts and trusted news sources, it's also accelerating the shift to digital. News consumption has jumped, with most people using social media, search engines, video sites, and messaging apps, or a combination of these, to get information about COVID-19, according to the Reuters Institute. As the World Health Organization Director General in February said, we're not just fighting an epidemic, we're fighting an infodemic. Mobile journalism has reduced the ability of authorities or news organisations to control the agenda. This power shift to people and platforms has both democratised news and disrupted it. Social media gives people access to a wide range of sources, some of which, of course, are misleading or false. We know that misinformation flourishes in times of crisis. The rapper Kanye West did not predict the coronavirus. The flu shot doesn't contain COVID-19, and a future vaccine won't include a microchip. This spike in fake news means that it's even more important for trusted, accurate journalism that educates and informs from established news organisations like Reuters. Reuters is uniquely equipped to cover global stories, whether that's the novel coronavirus or the Black Lives Matter protests. But even with more than 2,000 journalists around the world, we can't be everywhere at once. That's why we have a dedicated team sourcing, verifying and clearing user-generated content. Just look at this example from earlier this month. This is the statue of Edward Colston, who made his fortune in the 17th century from trading in West African slaves. It was torn down and thrown into Bristol Harbour in England by a group of protesters. This English port city doesn't typically hit the global headlines, yet this supremely local story received global attention thanks to citizen journalists. It's user-generated content like this that helps Reuters to expand its reach, transform storytelling, and take viewers right to the heart of breaking news. But at Reuters, we don't view this proliferation of third-party material as a threat to our business. As I said earlier, it complements our journalism rather than replacing it. Just look at the Black Lives Matter protests. If we were relying entirely on UGC, we wouldn't be telling the full story. 99% of the footage we see filmed is either by protesters or local reporters who aren't necessarily trying to be bias-free. On top of this, viral video clips often tend to display the most dramatic flashpoints. When the majority of protests have been peaceful, we can't risk simply cherry-picking the most sensational moments. Yes, we pick up and verify striking UGC, but we also compare it with our own cameras and trusted partners, making sure that the clips make sense in the context of what's happening. Our own journalists have also covered the protests at length with long edits and sustained, balanced coverage. It's absolutely crucial that we do both. UGC can serve a vital role in catalysing social change, but at Reuters we're extremely careful with third-party material and anything that's not filmed by a trusted journalist. That's why each piece of content is rigorously verified and licensed with speed and accuracy by our dedicated team. We invest in this because we often encounter material that's not authentic. Just look at this video. Oh, shit. This clip purports to show the Minneapolis 3rd Police Precinct exploding. It doesn't. In fact, it shows a chemical plant exploding in China. The video is old, recycled material, edited to change the audio narration. NBC even later interviewed the guy that filmed it, who showed the impact and devastation it had on his apartment.
Everything's destroyed. I have to start all over.
So how do we go about verifying material? Well, there are actually a number of techniques that we use. One is a reverse image search. Now, we can't reverse search the video itself, but we can reverse search video frames. We use an excellent free tool called InVid, which automatically generates keyframes and quickens this process. We check geolocation. Using satellite imagery, Google Street View, and pre-existing imagery of a location, we're able to look for matching details to confirm the location the material was captured. We interrogate the metadata. We try where possible to obtain original media files so that we can examine the metadata attached. Now, this can be an excellent way of adding to the evidence of verification, although we obviously can't rule out the possibility it might have been altered. We use corroborating imagery. We always seek out other visual angles of the same incident. If such corroborating imagery doesn't exist, then we look to speak to other eyewitnesses to better understand what occurred. We directly question the source of the material. The first step in verification is to identify and contact the source, which actually can be quite a difficult process. Once we've found the apparent source, we ask lots of questions so that we can be confident we've found the right person. We request further visuals, for example, that person filmed, as well as determining why the source was there in the first place and what happened before and after the incident on camera. And finally, of course, we consult experts. At Reuters, we have journalists all over the world with subject matter, regional and language expertise. We're able to turn to them to see if they can identify any inconsistencies or anything that warrants further investigation. At times, we see some really important footage, but we don't distribute it on the Reuters wire until we manage to trace it back to the source and ask the questions that we need to, so we're confident that it is an authentic portrayal of events as they occurred. We spotted this video, for example, at the height of the Black Lives Matter protests in the US. The caption and location tag implies it shows protesters breaching security at the White House. It doesn't. It actually shows protesters at the Ohio State House. Now, we don't always know if content is being shared deliberately to mislead or whether it's accidental. But whether it's misinformation or disinformation, it's imperative that we verify it, both for our customers and to preserve the integrity of our brand. The final area I wanted to look at today is how mobile journalism has helped us improve the scope and the quality of our news gathering at Reuters over the last decade. It's helped us cut through silos. The technology that we use has evolved and the workflow is much simpler. We use our resources and people far more efficiently, and it's helped us catalyse a change in mindset and culture. All of our journalists, regardless of discipline, have a smartphone in their pocket. Like many other organisations, we've developed a bespoke mobile journalism app, more than 5 years ago actually, which journalists can use to shoot and share footage. We've also provided all of our text journalists and photographers and staff with training on how to shoot visuals with their smartphones. Back in 2018, our Saudi correspondent Stephen Kalin captured Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman taking selfies of himself at a conference. The photo made the front page of the New York Times. Not bad work for a traditional print reporter with a smartphone. More recently, during the UK election campaign, our Deputy Bureau Chief captured a campaign stunt by Boris Johnson when he drove a digger emblazoned with the sign "Get Brexit Done" through a foam wall that bore the word "gridlock" in red paint. We were able to process our iPhone footage well ahead of the pool visuals, giving us a competitive edge. Less than a fortnight ago, 2 of our UK text reporters also caught some key moments from far-right protests in London that turned violent. This helped to complement the footage that our TV crews were capturing. Similarly, one of our London production team found himself in the middle of the UK's first Black Lives Matter protest. While there, he realised he was witnessing something that was quite unique. So he called the live desk in our London office and offered them a shot from his phone using the MOJO app. Within minutes, he was broadcasting live to the world. Not only that, he also tweeted part of the video he recorded whilst live, and soon it received more than 500,000 views. No matter what medium our journalists specialise in, whether it's text, video or pictures, we're always ready to make the most of opportunities. Our jobs have us reporting from every corner of the globe and put us in extraordinary situations. Now all of us have a camera in our pocket and are equipped with simple technology, ready to capture those places and moments and send them to our customers. All photographers at Reuters have also had video training and regularly shoot pictures and moving images. This has actually dramatically increased the scope and the geographical reach that we have. It also allows us to inject a different aesthetic into our video storytelling. Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer Carlos Barilla was part of the Reuters team covering the protests in Minneapolis, sparked by the death of George Floyd. His smartphone was his video camera, so he didn't have to switch his camera from photo to video settings constantly. It was his comms tool. It was a notepad, a geolocation device, a dictaphone, and a way to transmit videos and photos to Reuters hubs for processing. In other words, it was essential. Alongside his compelling photography, Carlos was able to shoot video like this from his iPhone 11 Pro in 4K. The phone was also critical when it came to security. One night, Carlos came to the aid of a Reuters security advisor after he'd been shot in the face by a rubber bullet. After being treated by medics, Carlos drove him back to the hotel in his car and checked his phone for the geolocation of his other colleagues. He actually discovered that a reporter was in the police control area and he was able to warn him of the imminent danger. The reporter sought safety in the lobby of an apartment block where he had to stay overnight. When I was preparing for this keynote, I actually spoke to Carlos, who told me that his smartphone was an essential tool in his daily news reporting. I asked him if he ever felt threatened by the ubiquity of smartphones and the democratization of photography. His answer made me smile. Everyone can take a picture, he said, but not everyone can take a great picture. This technical agility has also come in handy when covering the COVID-19 crisis. Our photographer, Lucy Nicholson, for example, was able to follow a pregnant doctor during a 12-hour shift in a downtown Los Angeles intensive care unit back in May. Lucy used an iPhone 11 without the usual microphone and gimbal and without a lighting kit or tripod. But she managed to capture the moment when the doctor removed a tracheostomy tube from one of her first COVID patients.
Yay, you did it!
Lucy's expertise also enabled her to interview the doctor in a corner of the intensive care unit that provided decent lighting, unlike the typical fluorescent lighting in most hospitals, while the latest version of the iPhone provided acceptable exposure latitude.
I'm hoping that by 2021, the world will be a slightly sunnier place.
The COVID-19 patients were in individual negative pressure rooms, so Lucy needed to dress in additional protective gear to enter the rooms and had to drench her equipment in disinfectant after she stepped out. Using a smartphone, of course, made this much easier. She was able to record video B-roll and interviews, which she then transcribed for a text story. She used a notepad app on the phone to take notes so she wouldn't have to decontaminate a pen paper notepad. And she used 2 Canon professional cameras and 2 lenses for the still photos. The story was perfect for our digital clients. Our video helped to transport the viewer into a COVID-19 ICU. Photos told the story of the pregnant doctor on the front lines, and text gave the piece context and depth. Using a smartphone to gather news is also useful when our journalists benefit from being more discreet, or when they want to put their subjects at ease. It was actually particularly useful when we went into Wuhan for the first time to see the impact of the world's first lockdown, for example. We also used it as a tool when covering the protests in Hong Kong in 2019. On top of traditional cameras, GoPros, Osmos, drones, the smartphone has become an integral part of our technical arsenal. There's no doubt that mobile journalism and the saturation of smartphones has disrupted the industry. The first camera on the scene of a story won't necessarily be a professional one. The evolution of technology and the easy accessibility to publish on social media platforms has created an army of citizen journalists all over the world. But it's also provided organisations like Reuters with huge opportunities. Mobile journalism has enabled us to shift the collective mindset of our newsroom. It cuts through silos because the device itself can produce content from all platforms. We've upskilled our journalists and expanded our geographical reach. We sweat our resources, and we've created a much more experimental culture. In 2019, for example, Reuters published more than 3,000 photos taken by 659 different text journalists and more than 100 videographers on their smartphones. We also published hundreds of videos shot by photographers and text reporters, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. On top of this, the proliferation of user-generated content has boosted our storytelling capacity. It complements our news gathering efforts, and we take it very seriously. We vigorously verify all content so we're sure it's authentic. If the George Floyd protests and police brutality wasn't captured on a phone, if that video didn't exist, I doubt we would have experienced the protests and societal change we're seeing now. Yes, there was some CCTV footage from another angle, but it didn't capture the horror of the full 8 minutes and 46 seconds of Floyd's death. Without the bravery of the 17-year-old teenager who shot the video, we would not have a comprehensive record of exactly what happened. Thank you and enjoy the conference.